Namaste and welcome to the Vani Speakers Academy's Chai and Chat session. My name is Haria and I am the Kendriya Sahab Bodhik Pramukh for HSS UK. I will be your host for today's session. Today is the first episode of a four-part series of Vani Chai and Chat sessions, where we will get to meet the second cohort of Vani's Speakers Academy. Vani gives us an opportunity to develop our speaking skills, the ability to convey our messages across to the wider Samaj. Each one of the members of our cohort has a responsibility in Sangh and regularly gives speeches and bodhiks in Chaka and other activities as well. The Vani journey for this second cohort began over a year ago, and since being selected for the program, they have all attended 3 key skills workshops and have submitted a number of speeches along the way. Today, 2 members from the second cohort of Vani will be presenting their final speeches in front of you. So let's kick off and let me introduce you to our 2 orators today. First of all, we have Shri Paresh Mistry. Born and brought up in Bradford, Paresh studied mathematics and management at the University of Manchester. Paresh has been a full-time Vistarak for HSS UK in 2004 and 2005. And since then, after finishing his Vistar, he worked and lived in Edinburgh for 6 years, training as a chartered accountant. Last year, he started a home care company in Yorkshire. He is currently the North East and Scotland Vibhag Karyawa, supporting and coordinating activities across 9 towns in his Vibhag. Welcome, Paresh. We also have with us Sangita Chhabhadiya. Sangita is a Sevika from Woolwich, Pannabai Shaka, and is currently the Kendriya Shari Pramukh for Hindu Sevika Samiti. She studied law with management at Aston University and currently works as an investigator for the Financial Ombudsman Service. She has completed Dvitiya Varsh in Bharat and has taken 4 months out to do Vista. Sangita is also a qualified yoga teacher from S. Vyasa University in Bangalore. Welcome, Sangita ji. So, as this is a chai and chat session, I thought we'd start by asking a few questions to our 2 cohort members. So first of all, let's start with Sangita ji. Sangita ji, tell us about your Vani journey so far.
Thanks, Harshji. It's been really challenging. It's been tough for someone who's not confident or, hasn't done public speaking before, but wanting to improve. It's definitely been something where I've been outside of my comfort zone, to say at the most. But I've got a lot more from it than what I initially thought. So I signed up thinking, right, I'm going to improve at my public speaking. But for me, it's made me realize, so Sumit ji, who's one of the coordinators for Vani, always says that everyone has a gift to give to the world. And I realized for me that that's yoga and that is my passion, and that I need to take it further and do more with it. So on the back of it, I've set up my own Instagram page, and I'm hoping to do a qualification to become a yoga therapist. So whatever you're giving a speech in, you need to be an expert. You need to know your stuff, something that Sachinji's always told us. So it's been life-changing, I'd say, as cliche as that sounds.
Brilliant. And Paresh, how have you found the journey so far?
Yeah, I think I'd probably echo Sangita Bin's words there. It is quite a challenging kind of process, enjoyable at the same time. You do learn a lot as well throughout that process. I mean, most of us, as some Karikatas, we do get the opportunity to speak, whether it's just to do a short bodhik in Shaka or maybe a larger event. But it's that kind of, I guess, one thing which I've sort of learned through the Vani process is that refinement. So you can talk, you're okay, but that refinement of how to kind of plan and structure a speech, that's really come quite strong for me.
Right. And how have you, both of you actually, been preparing for today? So today's your final speech. I know you've had a number of speeches that you've done over the course of the last 10 months or so when you've had your workshops, but what has been the most challenging part for today's session for you? I'll start with Sangita ji.
For me, so I've been using some of the techniques that we've learned in the Abhyas work. So things like, so everyone's at home at the moment and there's 6 of us. So I can't, be vocal, use my hands and speak really loudly, but I'm able to practice my speech, miming it, just using my mouth and just standing in front of the mirror, not making any noise and distracting everyone because they're all on other Zoom calls too. But also I've been actually practicing in the car. So when I have my journeys, like instead of listening to my music, I'll turn it down and I'll just be miming my speech on my small car journeys, dropping my brother off to school and stuff like that. But yeah.
Great. And Paresh?
Yeah, I think for me, when I started this kind of the Vani journey, I used to write everything down and try to remember everything I've written, and that would be the formation of the speech. But for this sort of final speech, it's kind of been the other way around in terms of some general themes, and then just try to talk about those general themes and then build the content as you kind of go along. And similarly, you sort of try and find those opportunities where where you've got that moment to yourself, whether it is that car journey to work or just kind of in a room in the house by yourself, and just, which is quite difficult sometimes, is trying to talk to yourself and mime to yourself. But the Cohort 1, Hinabin, has supported me quite well, as well as Sumitji and Sachinji as well. So it's always good to kind of bounce those ideas off each other.
Brilliant. Now today, both of you, your topic is similar. You're both talking about Bharat's contribution to the world. I wanted to ask both of you, why that particular topic? What was it about this topic that appealed to you, and therefore you wanted to have this as your final speech? So we start with Paresh first.
Yeah, sure. So I think the topic of Bharat's contribution to the world, there's so many sort of contributions that Bharat has made, and sometimes we kind of forget that. And that's one of the reasons why I was quite keen to sort of talk about this area, that sometimes people sort of see the modern world being kind of Western, and actually they forget about actually some of this stuff, or good stuff, originated from Bharat, and it's good to kind of highlight and project that every now and again.
Brilliant. And Sangita ji?
I think along the similar lines, but also I've done a bodhik on this probably a good couple of years ago now, and I absolutely loved it because you just find out all this stuff that you didn't know. So it's been nice to kind of go back into that and just relook at things. And there's so much, as you guys will see from today's speeches, that Bharat has contributed. It's like, how do you pick and choose like what to talk about in your speech as well? But yeah, it's been really, really interesting, and there's so much to it. Like you could carry on sort of studying and researching, and you could find out lots of stuff all the time.
Great. So in a couple of minutes, we're going to start with your speeches. And what's going to happen is this is you going to deliver your final speech. Now, normally we would have done this in a in-person Samarop like we did last year with the year 1 cohort. But obviously, given our circumstances with the COVID situation, this is the way that we're going to deliver it today. Now, while we're doing this, there'll be an opportunity for all of us watching at home to ask some questions and take that opportunity. There's the ability in YouTube to put questions on the chat facility. So go ahead and make sure, if you've got any questions at all about the Vani process, about the content that they're about to deliver, anything at all, put them into the chat facility, and we will ask these questions to both Sangita ji and Paresh ji. Now, we've flipped a coin, and based on the results, I think Paresh ji, you're going to be going first. So just to introduce you into this. So your topic, as we said, is Bharat's contribution to the world. The target audience to bear in mind for this speech is going to be students who have got a basic knowledge of Hinduism and have a knowledge of Hindu Dharma as well. So Paresh ji, over to you.
Namaste. Did you know that the world's first university was in Takshashila in Bharat, which is present-day Pakistan? This was some 700 years BC. In contrast, the prestigious Oxford University started teaching some 1700 years after Takshashila was established. Takshashila, at its height, had over 10,500 students coming from as far afield as Greece, China, and Arabia. It had over 60 courses on offer, ranging from mathematics to medicine to philosophy. It just to think about what the level of thought and discussion would have been going on in that powerhouse of knowledge. Did you also know that zero was discovered in Bharat, and that Brahmagupta, the famous mathematician and astronomer, devised a set of rules to compute with zero? And those mathematicians amongst us will know that zero is so fundamental in the binary system, and that the binary system is so crucial in the digital age. So again, without being able to compute with zero, this world may have been a very different place. Did you also know that yoga or yogasana originated in Bharat some 5,000 years ago? A very long time. And in the modern age, we see yoga as a physical form of exercise and posture. But some of us may know yoga is much more than that. It's the union of body, mind, and spirit. It's to do with the universal consciousness. It's to do with spiritual awakening. And like Takshashila, like zero, like yoga, Bharat has a number of contributions to the world. In fact, if we sat together, even for a few minutes, and you may want to make a few comments in the comments box, we may come up with hundreds, if not thousands, of discoveries or inventions or things that Bharat was number one for or started. And so Bharat's contribution to the world is second to none. But what is Bharat's greatest gift to the world, the greatest contribution to the world? Well, in my opinion, Bharat's greatest contribution to the world is that of peace and harmony. Now, that's not to say that any other nation in the world does not promote peace and harmony. Of course they do. But when you peel back the history, the heritage, the culture of Bharat, and you see for thousands upon thousands of years, this common thread that links it all together, and that is of peace and harmony. And we don't need to look too far, whether it be the all-powerful Gayatri Mantra, or the universal Shanti Mantra, or the very sincere Bhojan Mantra. They all end with Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let there be peace, peace, peace. So let's look back a few thousand years then. Let's have a look at the epics, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, a treasure house of Hindu epic. But what do the Ramayana and Mahabharata have to teach us about peace and harmony? After all, war was central to both of these stories, to these both epics. But let's start with Sri Ram. He united all the positive forces, built this magnificent bridge to reach Lanka, to defeat Ravan and to rescue Sita Mata. But before that war started, Sri Ram asked one of his chiefs in the army, Angan, to go as a peace envoy to Ravan, to speak with him, to reason with him, to make Ravan see sense. After all, Ravan was a learned individual. But Ravan, drowned in his ego, in his arrogance, could not give in. And so war was inevitable. But we don't remember Sri Ram today just because he defeated Ravan and rescued Sita Mata. We remember Ram because of his high ideals, because of his values. We remember Sri Ram because he restored peace and harmony to the world. Let's look at Sri Krishna Bhagwan. Sri Krishna Bhagwan himself in the Mahabharata, he was the peace envoy on behalf of the Pandavas. And he arrived there at the court of Hastinapur with all the noble men and the king waiting for him. And when he spoke to the king couldn't see in any other way. He was blinded by his son Duryodhana's ambition to be the heir and the next king after him. And so again, because the king could not see any other way, war was inevitable. But we don't remember Krishna Bhagwan just because he was a peace envoy for the Pandavas. We remember Krishna Bhagwan today because of the Bhagavad Gita, because he taught us how to live a dharmic life. We remember Sri Krishna Bhagwan because he restored, or he was the catalyst to restore peace and harmony to the world. And if we move along that journey and consider some of our dharmic traditions born out of Bharat, and start with Jainism. And some of the fundamental principles that a practicing Jain would class quite dear to him are those principles of non-attachment, non-violence, being truthful, not to steal. These principles all contribute to that peace and harmony of the world that we live in. If you look at Buddhism, Lord Buddha himself found enlightenment and inner peace. And if we look at Buddhism, it actually crossed borders to China, to Japan, to Thailand, to many other countries, but not by the wielding of any sword, but through that message to mankind of peace and harmony. And if we finally look at Sikhism, just some 500 years ago, central to Sikhism is for followers to think of God always, to see God in everyone. Selfless service, that's seva, stand up and protect those that are weak. And again, these principles are key to maintaining peace and harmony in the world. If we move along that journey now to the 1800s or the 18 and 1900s, we see that towering personality, that inspirational personality of Swami Vivekananda, who made that very famous speech in Chicago at the World Parliament of Religions. He brought the message of Vedanta from Bharat to the West. He brought that message of universal oneness from Bharat to the West. He brought that message of peace and harmony. He then dedicated his whole life to promote these great ideals and values. And let's not forget Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi. Through his peaceful, non-violent means of protest, he immersed himself in the freedom struggle. The likes of Albert Einstein, Martin Luther King, and Barack Obama have all said that Mahatma Gandhi was their role model. In contrast, the greatest Briton, according to a survey some years ago, Winston Churchill, hated Gandhiji. It was like a thorn in his side, because Gandhiji, through his peaceful protest, was able to gather and attract the masses in order for Bharat to get its independence, whilst Winston Churchill was trying to hold on to this empire. Like Vivekananda, like Gandhiji, countless social reformers and great inspirational personalities, Mahapurush, have been born in Bharat, promoting peace and harmony. And we can gain so much inspiration, we can gain so much motivation from such individuals. But it's how we channel that inspiration that's important. So if we can channel that inspiration within oneself and create inner peace and contentment, if we can channel that inspiration in our family, so our family, we live harmoniously. And if we can channel that peace, channel that inspiration, and contribute in some way or other to the peace and harmony of society, then not only can we say that we acknowledge, but also we enhance Bharat's contribution to the world, and that is universal peace and harmony. Namaste, Dhanyavad.
Brilliant, Paresh. Absolutely brilliant. Well done. That was a very, very inspirational speech. I'm very intrigued by the amount of content that you've covered there, going into Bharatiya Itihas and calling out some key personalities, but also some of their traits which worked with the theme that you were going for there. Tell me a little bit about how you found that as well in terms of a delivery perspective, in terms of just doing the speech. How did you find it?
I think in terms of the journey, in terms of preparing for this, it was always like, oh, I've forgotten this, I've forgotten that. But I think with this speech, it's I think Sumit had said once as well that every time you deliver a speech, it will always be different. So it's kind of having the sort of the key aspects that you want to cover off, the key messages that you want to cover off, and I'm sure what I've said today was probably slightly different to how I practiced it earlier today or yesterday, but hopefully I've covered the key messages that I wanted to get across there.
So just picking on that a little bit more. So when you're preparing a speech of this nature, What do you look at? How do you draw inspiration for that content that you're going to prepare? How are you pulling that content together?
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, because there's a lot out there. It's kind of trying to pull all that content to try and fit it into sort of a 10-minute speech. So I wanted to cover the ages, because that was important for this particular speech, because fundamental to this speech was about peace and harmony through the ages. So it was very important to me to get that message across, but at the same time to then I guess highlight certain individuals, because then through the lives of those individuals we can seek that inspiration. It's always quite difficult to choose, but then I guess sometimes it's good to choose personalities that people are aware of, so that they can connect as well. So that was kind of part of the decision making in that speech.
Yeah, and then just because the theme of your talk was around peace and harmony, we've had a question submitted. Sachin Nanda's asking, how do you qualify or quantify peace as a contribution? You mentioned it so many times with the different personalities that you described. How are you quantifying it?
How do I quantify?
How do you say that this is a contribution that Bharat has made to the world? What inspires you to say that that's a contribution? What was it about? Because you spoke about a number of different personalities, right? You spoke about a number of different areas. You talked about the universities, for example, Patricia being one of the first universities. That's all about knowledge. That's all about gyan. And the theme that you came back to was on peace. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, peace and harmony is that message that Bharat gives to the world, and it's always given to the world. And as I said in the speech, even fundamental to the Ramayana and Mahabharata is a war, but the war was there in order to restore peace and harmony. And similarly, all the dharmic belief systems that I've spoken about, when you look at the value systems, the principles, the vows that people take, it is all about how to make society better, and that's why that's how I've kind of connected those elements to that kind of peace and harmony. And again, similarly to sort of Gandhiji and Swami Vivekananda as well, in terms of their teachings, what they were sort of promoting. Again, based on that Bharatiya history, heritage, and culture, which sings peace and harmony.
Brilliant. Okay, so one final question. What was the biggest, the change that you felt within yourself going through Vani, doing this speech now, maybe having done this speech or something similar in the past? Do you recognize any changes? Do you recognize anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's that trying to capture the audience's attention first off as soon as possible, keeping them engaged. I know it's a little bit difficult kind of online in terms of kind of hand gestures and all that sort of a thing, but that was kind of quite useful in terms of that whole journey. But in terms of speech itself, a call to action as well. So it's the kind of, so what what do you want me to do with what you're telling me? So I think that was quite important. It's not just facts and figures, but it's kind of, well, okay, that's great, but now I know what to do as a result.
Brilliant. That's great. I think one of the points that you covered there is a word that some of our first cohort members found quite difficult was congruency. Congruency is something that we initially, when we first start, we say something, but our rest of the body doesn't match what we're saying. And through this process, we can certainly see that you've been more congruent today with your speech. So well done, excellent speech. Great. So now we come to Sangita ji. Sangita ji, again, your topic is also Bharat's contribution to the world, but you've taken a slightly different angle to this. Your audience is slightly different. So you're targeting this speech for teenagers and what you've labeled as the kind of the Instagram generation or using social media, etc. So without further ado, let's go over to you, Sangita ji, for your speech.
Namaste. Have you ever thought about what the world would look like without Donald Trump, without McDonald's, or without social media? Well, without Donald Trump, I think we'd be okay. We'd get by. Without McDonald's, I guess we could always turn to pizza. And without social media, well, I can imagine that being quite difficult for a lot of us, seeing as we're always on our phones every day. But have you ever thought about what the world would look like without Bharat? And when I refer to Bharat, by the way, I'm talking about India, but by its traditional name. From the buttons on our shirt, to the shampoo that we use in our hair, to the diamonds that we wear. These are just some of the things that Bharat has been able to give to the world. Bharat's contribution to this world has been phenomenal, from being one of the earliest civilizations in the world full of such rich culture and philosophy. Even when it was invaded time and time again, it still managed to contribute. And even in the here and now, whilst we're in the middle of a pandemic, Bharat's contribution is still vital and something that we should all know about. Now, for those of you that think that I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step list on how to make an Indian curry, or give you the top 10 Bollywood films that have made India the most money, then I'm afraid that's not going to be the case today. Let's have a look at some of the ways that Bharat has contributed. I'll start off with its inventions and discoveries. And like Paresh said, there are hundreds of these, but we're going to be highlighting a few of the key ones. The first way is Takshila University, the world's oldest university, the first university that came about 700 BC. It had over 10,000 students coming from all across the globe, and there were over 60 different subjects being taught. Bharat provided the world with its very first university. The second one is the number 0. 0 was discovered as early as the 5th century by a man called Aryabhat, known as the famous Indian mathematician. Now, some of you might be thinking, 0, so what? It's only a number, right? But actually, without the 0, we wouldn't be able to count and we wouldn't be able to measure anything. And if you're not a mathematician or that doesn't excite you, then just remember that without the 0, there'd be no binary system. So we could wave goodbye to all the technology that we have and our mobile phones. Aryabhat was also able to calculate the value of pi and invented things such as the Pythagoras theorem and discovered quadratic equations and even trigonometry back in the early hundreds. And speaking of trigonometry, that brings me on to my next point. Sanskrit, the oldest language in the world. Again, that too comes from Bharat. Did you know that the word trigonometry actually comes from the Sanskrit word trigonamiti? Tri meaning 3, gonam meaning angle, and miti meaning to measure. The art of navigation was too founded in Bharat, and the word navigation is also derived from the Sanskrit word navgat, and the word navy comes from the Sanskrit word no. There are hundreds of other, not only English words, but also other European languages that too have words that are derived from Sanskrit. That's why Sanskrit is known as the mother of all European languages. Bharat's contribution to astronomy was also vital. It laid down the foundations for all the other European astronomers that came hundreds of years later. Bharat was able to discover things such as the Earth's circumference, the Earth's orbitation, and even the Earth's eclipse. Again, hundreds of years before the Europeans ever did. And lastly, Bharat discovered surgery. Surgery was founded as early as 600 BC by a man called Sushruta, known as the father of surgery. Not only was he carrying out surgery on the brain and the limbs and on fractures, but Sushruta was carrying out surgery on the eyes and even carrying out plastic surgery back then. Imagine that being done in the medieval times, and have a think about when plastic surgery first came here into Europe. It wasn't all serious when it came to Bharat. They too knew how to have fun and games. From Bharat came chess and the snakes and ladders board game. They also liked sports, and Bharat invented karate and judo and polo. And if you're someone like me who enjoys sitting around the table when it's Diwali or Christmas, then just remember that the playing cards too come from Bharat. So we have a lot to thank them for. The second way that Bharat has been able to contribute to this world is through two key concepts that come from the Rigveda. The Rigveda is the oldest scripture in the world, again, thousands of years old. And these are Ayurveda and Yoga. Both of these, if we take them seriously enough and if we understand them, we'll realize that they're absolute game changers. Ayurveda is the science of life and longevity. It's about having a holistic approach, living in accordance with nature so that we're able to prevent these imbalances that we have in our body, which are the root cause of any illnesses or diseases that we may have. Have a think about the last time you were ill. Take yourself back there. How was you feeling? Maybe a bit low, not your usual self. Maybe you're tucked up in your blanket, hot water bottle. Did someone come to give you something hot to drink, in fact? And I bet you it wasn't anything, any old drink. What was it? It was maybe hot milk, but it wasn't just hot milk, was it? It was haldi dud, right? If you've all been there, give us a thumbs up on the chat. Brilliant. So, haldi dud, why? It's the number one thing that all of us as Indians, we go running to, right? As soon as we fall ill. Why is that? It's because haldi, which is turmeric, it's an antioxidant. It helps reduce any inflammation that we have in the body, and it helps to boost our immunity, right? And if you don't know what haldi dud is, by the way, and you're watching this, then go find someone that does, because you're really missing out on a trick there. But this is essentially Ayurveda in practice. If we can understand Ayurveda, learn it more, then we can realize that actually we can help our bodies and we can be fitter and healthier using the fresh and natural ingredients that we have in our very own kitchens. The second concept that comes from the Rigveda is yoga, one of my favorites. And when I'm referring to yoga, or yoga as a lot of us know it, I'm not just talking about being able to do the downward dog or looking super fit and slim in your yoga pants. No, I'm not talking about that at all. But I'm talking about the practice of yoga that comes off the mat. The practice of yoga and implementing it in our lifestyles. We all want to be happy, right? We all want to be healthy. Who doesn't? Our well-being is important to us. Well, if we're able to understand yoga and the 8 limbs of yoga and implement them into our lifestyles, and not just the one, being the physical postures, then we'll realize that we can be fit and happy and healthy. I'm speaking as a qualified yoga teacher and someone from my own personal experience that yoga can do this for you if we're willing to take out that time to understand it. The third way that Bharat has contributed to the world is through the here and now. It's important for us to understand that too. Bharat makes up to 17% of the entire world's population. It has the 3rd largest economy in the world. And by 2050, reports tell us that it's going to be the world's superpower. Now, if that happens, you know you heard it here first, right? If we look at the globally empowering companies that we see in the world today, a lot of their CEOs, they're Indian. Have a think, how many can you actually count? I'm thinking the likes of Microsoft, IBM, Google, Nokia, MasterCard, and the list can go on and on and on. Again though, why are their CEOs Indian? What is it about them that makes them good leaders? Even in the UK, 2 out of the top 5 positions in Parliament are held by Indians. Why is that? We're currently in the middle of a world pandemic. COVID-19, it's tough for all of us, isn't it? I'm sure we all know someone that's been affected by it. But did you know that the World Health Organization, they're looking to Bharat and they think that it is Bharat that can help find a vaccine for COVID-19. Why? One, because Bharat has the experience of eradicating 2 pandemics in the past. They were able to find the cure for smallpox and polio. But also, Bharat has a lot of innovation, but also they're able to find an affordable solution to the problem for the entire world. Why is that? It's because from Bharat comes the concept of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, that this entire world is one family. It is because from Bharat comes the greeting of Namaste, that I bow down to the divinity within you, and that me and you, we're both equal. It is from Bharat that we have the world's largest voluntary organization, and comes the concept of seva, selfless service. Whilst I've been able to highlight some of the ways that Bharat has contributed to the world today, it's important for us to understand the why behind all of this. Why is it that Bharat has been able to contribute so much from the very early ages all the way up until now, and continues to do so? I believe that it's because of the values that come from Bharat, that no matter where we go as an Indian, we're able to make a positive contribution to society and make it a better place. It is Bharat that has given us a lot of the things that we use in our daily lives today. Just have a think, what have you got on you? Would you have it without Bharat? And I guarantee you there probably won't be anything. It is Bharat that has given us the concepts of Ayurveda and Yoga. Let us understand and own them. It is Bharat that has taught us about living a dharmic lifestyle and being a good human being. So let us not only recognize these contributions that we've shared with you today, but let us understand them better. Let us own them and implement them in our daily lives, not just for us, your own self as an individual, but for your family and for the wider Samaj. Bharat has given a lot to this world, and it's for that reason that there really and truly is no other place like it. Namaste.
That was fantastic, Sangita. What a brilliant speech that you've just delivered. Again, similar to Paresh, you covered a lot of different areas of contribution that's been made, and I like and enjoyed how balanced you made it. You know, you spoke about some of the actual what, for example, so surgery, maths, etc. Trigonometry you spoke about. You also taught us the Hindi or the Sanskrit word for trigonometry, which I'm not going to attempt right now, but brilliant, well done for that. And then you brought it to the modern day as well. That was really fascinating, excellent. How did you find it delivering that?
Yeah, I think it was okay. So I've actually been practicing in front of my setup, so in front of my screen, putting myself on the video, which I think helped. But yeah, I think I just thought, okay, you know what, final speech, got to go for it and just give it everything that you've got. So try to be what Sumitji says, animated. So I tried that as much as possible to really kind of exaggerate the key points that I wanted to highlight. But I also wanted to make sure that we made it as relatable as possible for the audience.
Brilliant. And you know, you use some cue cards there at the start as well. So you know, one of the other questions that we've had submitted is, what kind of tools do you help to tailor your speech to a different age group? Remember, this was for teenagers and for the Instagram generation. So yeah, what were your thoughts? Why the cue cards? What made you think about that particular tool?
So the cue cards I actually saw when somebody else delivered their speech, and I remembered what was on them. So I found that quite effective, and I decided I wanted to use that too, because there was a lot of inventions and discoveries. I highlighted 5, and then I go on to talk about, you know, the 2 from the Rigveda, and then lots of information, lots of content, lots of facts. So I thought one section use the cue cards, so you know, we visualize it a bit better. And another key one was just thinking about the audience at home, trying to make them think about, you know, when you have the haldi dud, trying to get them to imagine it happening back then as well, to make it as relatable as possible. And yeah, I think those were the main things. We've learned lots of techniques and tools throughout Vani, so things like the use of 3, how to use our body and hand gestures, when not to use them. You know, if we're talking like this, then everyone's going to be looking at your hands and not actually listening to what you're saying. So all of those kind of things. And then it's just thinking about tailoring it to your speech. So one of the things with mine was, do I use Bharat or do I use India when doing this? Because, you know, if it's someone that's not Indian or, you know, that has come from a Hindu background, they might not be familiar with the term Bharat. And so I spent a lot of time debating that in my head. And I ended up using both. More so India when it came to the last section and talking about the here and now and all the stats. But yeah, a lot to think about that we've been taught, lots of tools and techniques.
I noticed that between both of your speeches, actually, because the amount of content that's there's so much content that's there. Do you feel, both of you, that maybe there's a part 2 speech hidden in your content somewhere, that because you've drawn from such a wide resource or source, as it were, that there's potentially another speech that could come across from this particular topic? Both of you, I mean, this is open discussion, so whoever wants to go first, it's fine. Paresh, I think you want to...
Okay, cool. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think obviously there's only so much you can fit into that sort of 10-minute slot, but within my speech, I can see already, maybe at least 6 or 7 speeches. If you delve a little bit deeper into each aspect, then certainly, I could, given time, I could come up with another 6 or 7 short talks as well, with a bit more detail and a bit more content in there, because I think where I've tried to cover quite a wide range in terms of through the ages, you kind of miss out on going too deep into some of the topics.
Right. And Sangita, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think definitely you could probably make a whole hour lecture, a whole series of hours of lectures actually on this topic. There's so much more that I wanted to actually add in to the speech, and I had it all there, but to make the points, and you ultimately we had to pick out the key ones that we thought were interesting or that we wanted our audience to know about. But there's loads, things like wireless communication, the USB. We all have a USB nowadays. That was too invented from someone from Bharat. So there's loads, really difficult, but yeah, you could definitely make a lot of other speeches.
Both of you have delivered audits in the past in Shaka or in other areas, in other places where you might have an opportunity. How do you feel now that, do you feel different about how your delivery would be? Do you approach that same task or that same speech in a different way? Has that, I guess, has Vani taken you out of your comfort zone in a way? Sangita ji, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like a new person. It's great. I think after doing this whole process, we do get a bit of a grilling. It's not very often that you give a speech and you've got the rest of the cohort or experienced speakers there sort of critically analysing you and kind of giving you that feedback so you can improve. Normally if you're having a shaka bodhik or delivering a speech, people just listen to what you have to say and take whatever it is from there, rather than saying, oh, you could have said this bit better or exaggerated this point and, so and so. So it's been such a great learning opportunity, I think, for all of us. And we've all changed so much. We've all got different styles for our speeches. But if you saw our first ones, then hopefully you'd agree that we have all improved and become a lot better.
Great. Paresh, anything that you'd call out that you feel now is different in the way that you prepare, deliver?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just similar to what Sangita being said as well, that it's just when you're in that kind of Vani environment, and it's sort of people are not there to kind of criticize you just for the sake of it, but they're there to make you improve as well. And I think it was probably quite difficult in the kind of first Abhyasvarg, but as we've kind of gone along in the second and third Abhyasvarg, and you sort of take on that feedback and constructive criticism and then improve and grow as a person as well. A couple of things that I've taken on board is around giving certain words some emphasis as well to kind of make a point. And again, as I probably mentioned a little bit earlier, around that real call to action. It's not just a talk or a bodhic as such. There is a call to action at the end of it as well, and that's something which I'll take forward for future speeches.
Right. Is there, I mean, having gone through Vani now, and there may be people who are, or so-and-so executivos who are watching today, maybe thinking about, we want to join or we want to take part in Vani, but what would you, and maybe they have a doubt, maybe they have a fear of some sort about their, how is it going to be? Am I going to be able to do that? What one or two tips would you say, or would you give to our audience today with regards to that, in terms of the process, the academy itself, and the overall learnings that you have? Any key tips that you would say to them? Paresh, maybe?
Yeah, if you're thinking about it, then I'd probably suggest stop thinking and act. Actually, if you're thinking that's you're halfway there, but just come forward and actually sign up for Vani. You will learn and you will grow. No matter, sometimes you can think that, well, I'll give a talk in my shaka or at events, I'm great at it, but actually when you go through that process, you learn so much, you grow so much, not just from obviously Sumit Ji and Sachin Ji and Cohort 1, but also from each other as well. Because everyone, as Sangita Ben said, everyone's got their own style and ways of delivery, and you can pick up bits and pieces from others as well, and then that'll improve your own style and delivery as well. Right,
Sangita Ji, any tips from you?
Yeah, similar stuff. I think just make a start is the key thing. If you're delivering a bodhic in Shaka, ask someone beforehand. I'm going to be giving a bodhic. Let me know how it was, or give me some feedback, because a lot of the time we just say, yeah, that was good, that was great, but we can always improve. You could be the best speaker in the world. There's probably still somehow a way you could improve. So don't be afraid to, ask others to critically evaluate and kind of give you that feedback on how you could make it better. Just asking them, did you actually remember what I said? That's a good start, because if they don't, then it shows you that you need to work on it. I think there's so much content. One of the other things that we did during the Abhyas Varag was watch TEDx talks. So that's always helpful. You can learn yourself, and we always get told that just practice, 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 and practice in front of the mirror, practice in silence. It doesn't matter what you look like. We all look silly when we were practicing. And at one point, I think we were all shouting our speeches as well, and at one point whispering them, So just practice. And just get familiar with, being on screen, looking at yourself when you're delivering or preparing or practicing for your speech.
Brilliant. So we're coming to the end of our program today. So thank you very much, both of you, for your speeches today. Well done again. That was not an easy thing to do. And, especially sharing that last speech, your final speech with all of us watching as well. Definitely all the work that you've put in, the time that you've committed to the program itself, it all shows. So again, well done and thank you very much. This closes our episode for today. So this has been Vani Chai and Chat. As I said, this is our first episode of a series of 4 episodes that we have. Next week, we are going to have some more of our cohort from our second cohort, 2 more of our cohorts who will be presenting their speech. They're on screen right now. Panshriji Lakhani and Ajayji Sohal will be presenting their speeches on dharmic leadership, and our host will be Hinaji Salanki. So we hope you've enjoyed it today. Let us know about your feedback. Any questions, queries, please do put them on the chat facility or email them on to us as well. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Dhanyawad.